So the second last topic of separating is not about food, um, but there is a concept that there's objects that aren't food that are also could be considered um, psolet and ochel towards each other. So the practical examples that most adults deal with are cutlery and books. So the question about the gabbai um, collecting or distributing the chumashim or the sidders on Shabbat morning, um, or putting them back on the shelf in a certain order. And the other one is about actual cutlery. So if you um, collect all the cutlery from Friday night table and then you wash it because you need it the next morning, which you're allowed to do, the question is, are you allowed to separate them to the three, main cutlery, or you're supposed to just put them one by one in order to avoid borer? So for children, the other examples are games, and for me, even though I'm not a child, specifically stamp collecting and sorting on Shabbat.
Oh, okay.
So I'm hoping that this will be interesting. The next and last halacha is relating to separating, breaking nuts and then separating them from their peel, and that is actually part of dash, which we saw as one of the four categories of separating when we started this chapter. So we'll finish the chapter tomorrow. So just as the prohibition of boror applies to food, it applies to other items as well, such as books, utensils, and clothing. All the above rules for borer with food apply to other mixtures as well. In other words, one may remove from a mix something he wishes to use immediately, because this is not derech melacha, but the normal way this item is used. So we don't call it derech achila, but it's just the proper normal way, as opposed to melacha, which is a prohibited act of creative labor on Shabbat. However, one may not remove the item in order to use it later. Similarly, one may not sort a mix, and all the more so, one may not remove the items he does not want. So that's just a review of what we already saw, and now the examples. For example, if children mix together pieces from different games, they may not be separated, like decks of cards that got mixed up by mistake, or Legos, stuff like that. But if the children wish to play with one of the games now, they may remove the desired pieces from the mix. This sorting is not considered derech malacha, but derech mischak, the normal way of playing, because a game normally begins with taking out its pieces. And specifically with cards, you would say that we deal the cards. We don't want to have like a double ace of spades or something like that. And so again, taking the ones that we want as opposed to taking out the ones that we don't want. There's also a problem of borrow with mixed up silverware. Although the pieces are large and the difference between the different types of silverware is apparent, nevertheless, when there are many pieces, they are considered mixed. Therefore, one may not sort silverware and place each type separately. However, when washing the silverware, one may dry each utensil separately and place it in the proper compartment, because this does not involve selecting the utensil from the mixture in order to sort it. Rather, one is taking each piece randomly in order to dry it, and once it is in his hand, he may place it in the appropriate compartment. And then going to the meal, again, immediate use, before a meal, one may take the mixed up silverware and put the appropriate pieces next to each plate. So in Yeshiva, where you have 400 people in the Cheder Ochel, and you want to set the plates, not always they do that. Sometimes the Yeshiva decides to just, put all the silverware in those three or four compartments, and then you pick which ones you want. But if you are setting the table, then you're allowed to put each one in the appropriate place. The reason is, again, that this is not a normal way of sorting, but rather the normal way one prepares for a meal. this permission is on the condition that it is done close to the time of the meal. And we already said that that's very subjective because some people take more time to prepare for a meal, and your guest might be late by mistake, or that's not your fault. So you said it thinking that they're coming right now, and they end up coming late. That's not a problem for you because you did it as immediate as possible. Border can also apply to books. For example, if many different chumashim are mixed in a pile, and a synagogue attendant wishes to distribute the appropriate chumashim to worshippers, he may not remove the chumashim that are not being used from the pile. So that's when the chumashim are separated to the five books individually, as opposed to all five in one, like the Art Scroll or the Hurt chumash. So if you have each one, and sometimes because of all the commentaries, you actually have more than five in a set, two for Shemot and two for Devarim. So again, you're not allowed to take out those, but rather you're supposed to distribute or put away the ones that you want to be used in one place. Similarly, he may not remove the appropriate chumashim from the pile long before the service. Rather, close to the time of services, one may remove the appropriate chumashim from the pile because this is, again, not derech borer, but rather the normal way that to take books to use. And again, if you find out that you took the wrong book, you're allowed to return it because you're not doing, again, borer. Books on a shelf are not considered mixed, therefore one may remove books he wishes to learn from, even if he will not actually use the books until hours later. One who used many books may return them to the bookcase on Shabbat for the sake of neatness. In the course of returning them, he may put each book in its proper place, and that's why many libraries have different kinds of markings on it, so you would know what is appropriate. So yesterday we mentioned my hobby of collecting stamps, and there were two. I do remember that the Shmirat Shabbat Gilchata Rav Neuvert talks about it, but unfortunately I don't have my copy here. It's in the shul, and online Sefaria does not have it. But I did find a answer from a responsa of the Machon Halacha of Chabad, the Institute of being asked a question, so like ask the rabbi. And it was obviously a question from a child because the terminology was a little bit different from how an adult will ask. So the question was, and I'll just share it on the screen, am I allowed on Shabbat to add stamps to my collection or to play with them? Adults don't play with stamps. We take it a little bit more seriously. We trade them and stuff like that. So I'm thinking that trading on Shabbat would not be appropriate because by in the process you might be putting aside the ones that you don't want as opposed to the ones that you want, and that would be considered borer. But the rabbi was not relating specifically to this question in that way. Instead, he said that stamps that are, this is in the bold, stamps that are, their purpose is for the collection and not for sending off on Shabbat, is like a kli shemelachto le'eter, meaning a utensil that is allowed to be used on Shabbat. There's no melacha that isn't. So as long as you're not using them, intending to use them as postage, because that would be like money, then you are allowed to use them. And this other rabbi, Rav, okay, I'll just show you his face. No, that's not it. Anyway, this. So Rav Natan Ofer, he's talking about how two friends are gathering together on Shabbat and they reminisce that they used to collect stamps and they're interested in, looking back in those memories, almost like a photo album. And he says that that's allowed because it's not mukta, like we said, and you're not intending to do any kind of borer or any kind of sale. But if you find out that you have a rare or expensive stamp and you are thinking about selling it, you can go very quickly into that prohibition where now you consider it like money, and then it's muktzeh mechamat chesron kis, that you might be worried that it will be damaged or lost, and so it becomes muktzeh. So that's why I'm saying that if you want to actually, show, your niece or nephew, like I did this past Shabbat, my stamps, that you're allowed to do, but you're not supposed to take out stamps that you're not interested in, because that I think is borer. But the opposite is that you're allowed to add to the album in the appropriate place. And so I think that makes it at least as clear as possible for me. And so we'll stop here.